Life is a journey full of crossroads, curves, and detours. That's what makes life interesting and exciting. We never know what adventure we'll encounter just ahead, around the next bend. And that can make it kind of scary too, especially when we're faced with the loss of something or someone that really matters to us. The reality is that everyone loses things along the way, but it's in the death of those we love that we experience loss most acutely. It's the journey through grief that no one wants to be invited on, but all of us take sooner or later. And it's never easy. It isn't supposed to be. Not if who we lose really matters. There are some losses we've come to expect, like saying goodbye to our grandparents or parents. That's painful, but it's the normal order of things. But then there are those losses we don't expect, or if we do, we push them out of our minds because we just can't bear the thought, like losing a child. No parent should ever have to bury a child. It's just wrong. But Kevin and Dawn did. Their journey took a different path than what they were expecting. Taking the journey wasn't an option for them, but it's how they took the journey that's made all the difference.
So then we set out on the journey. That was a whole different journey, though. This time you kind of knew, in a way, you had a sense for what you were up against, you thought. But it turned out to be a very different journey.
March 29th, 2007. It's funny how those dates stick in your head, but he got up that morning and he couldn't stand up without weaving back and forth, and he couldn't walk without falling, and he crashed into things.
The first time that I noticed that there was something drastically wrong, I looked down at him and I see his leg just moving uncontrollably. He could, and so the jerking was him trying to just hold on because he couldn't balance himself. And that was the first time that I really realized, okay, this isn't just simple ear infection. The doctor told us what it was. He showed us the tumor. We felt it. Sure enough, you could tell. And he says, he left the room and said, "I'll be right back." And so we just, right there, we just kind of, we held hands and we prayed and just said, "Okay, God, you know what's going on here, and whatever it is, you're big enough to handle it, and we're just going to trust you with it."
And we went to admitting, and they got a wheelchair, and they wheeled me in the wheelchair holding him, and we went through these big double doors, and there was a big sign to the left that said pediatric oncology. And I thought, we don't belong here. Oncology is cancer. It's somehow the word tumor and the word cancer just didn't connect in my mind, even though I think I knew before we even went to the appointment that he had cancer. But it just wasn't connecting that was real, and I just thought, this isn't where we're supposed to be. There's got to be some mistake. And there wasn't.
Life as we knew it stopped, and we entered into this world of, I don't know, it felt very isolated, I guess, from the normal world. August 7th, he went in for regular scans again, and I don't think we really had any sense that anything was wrong, but they would do their regular scans every 3 months, and so he went in for his scans, and something showed up again.
It was kind of like a stab to the heart, because you know, as if the cancer diagnosis isn't bad enough. The relapse there's just a much more desperate feeling than there is the first time around, because you know how bad it was the first time. You know it's definitely not good news the second time, because we threw everything we had at it. If that didn't beat it, now what do we have?
And so when he relapsed, I got angry. I wanted my life back. And here we are sitting back out on this road again. I was just fried and was angry because I didn't want to be doing this again. Wanted my life back, wanted my family back. And he was sleeping more and more, and we go in there and watch TV together and sit by him and hold his hand.
Kiss his fuzzy head.
His hair was starting to grow back. So he had a fuzzy head. Kisses. I can still feel it on my lips. So we're sitting there and, holding him, and she says to me, he's gone. And that was it. He just, it was quiet and,
Pretty peaceful.
yeah. We've kind of compared it to, as much as you can, an amputation, but as an amputation of the soul. This child is flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone. And until that's gone, you don't realize just how deep that goes in you. And so you begin to kind of take stock of what this really is going to look like. This is really starting to become clearer what life looks like again without him here. And then it begins to hurt.
And you thought it hurt before.
And you thought it hurt before. But yeah, that first, fog lifts for us at 3 months or so, and then at 6-ish months was, for me anyway, was when it was just absolutely the worst. And it was, I'm like, in about 6 months or so, you're starting to think, okay, maybe now I should start getting back to normal again.
In the beginning, you think you're feeling everything, and then it's sharp and intense and bitter, and it's nothing compared to when the numb starts wearing off and the reality really hits. That this is what is now, and there's nothing you can do to change it. I think that was probably one of the most painful parts for me. Just not only have I lost this little person that was such a huge part of me, but so much of my purpose went with him. There's just a really sharp sense of permanence that kind of hits, that this is how it's going to be. Till we all go home, this is what life is. And that was really hard. The absence of Braden in our life, it is a presence. It is so sharp and so strong that he's not here. It is a presence. And that's really hard for most people to understand. There's a perception that time heals. And in this case, it's not true at all, because the further away you get from your child's death, the further away you feel from them. And that's painful. That doesn't make it better. That in some ways makes it worse, because, I haven't held my baby in 2.5 years. And that doesn't help. That makes it worse. It's a hard choice to make, to follow the God who let this happen when you can't see why.
Yeah.
Humans aren't built to be able to handle things like this. That strength only comes from God. It's nothing we can do on our own.
When you encounter something like this in your own life, it really, you either run to God or you run from God. But for me, it was, I wanted to run to God But the God that I knew, or the God I thought I knew, wasn't the God I needed at the time.
I think when David described it as the valley of the shadow, that's such an appropriate, because it really is. You feel like you're so far down, almost like being in a pit, and in a valley of shadow. It's dark. You don't know what's coming. You can't see what's coming because there's not a lot of light. And then, toward the end, it was like just walking further and further and further down. And it got darker and darker and darker. Some days I think we're still down in that valley, but there's more light than there was. Mm-hmm. It's kind of I think there's more light than darkness now, but it's not where I'd like to be, but it's where we are. Mm-hmm. Light changes everything.
C.S. Lewis described grief as the Shadowlands, and Kevin and Dawn would agree. The loss of a child, whether a miscarriage, a toddler, a teen, or even an adult, far outweighs almost every other loss, including the loss of a spouse. The death of a child unleashes a torrent of emotions that threatens to suck the life out of parents caught in the undertow. But what's encouraging is that in spite of their indescribable pain, the darkness of Kevin and Dawn's grief is being pierced more by the light as they progress on their journey. Will they ever get over it? Grief isn't something you get over, it's something you go through, and it stays with you. Just ask Bob and Chris. It's been over 20 years since they lost their only son, Matt, and they're still on their journey through grief. But they're at a very different place than where they began.
Guys, we should take my car. I just got it. Oh, this car's so sweet. I call shotgun. You always get shot. Oh.
It was that disbelief and total, absolute shock that he was telling me what he was telling me. So I was doing all I could do to hold her up, and there was a bench, and we finally sat on the bench, and we just started praying. Yeah. I get emotional because it's so real. Oh. We hugged, we cried, we screamed. And we praised God. I remember saying, God, see, you don't get over it. It's part of you. And I said, God, I don't know why or how, but I know I'm supposed to praise and thank you. And I did. And we look back at that and know that God had really honored that. Really did. He has never stopped caring for us. We knew where to turn, and God was where we turned. It's an indescribable pain, but it hurts from head to toe. Matt and I loved being outdoors. We loved fishing and hunting, and we did that a lot. And after he died, I lost that interest. My buddy was gone. I just didn't enjoy it like I did before. After Matt died, I literally put away my fishing gear for close to 20 years. I just didn't enjoy it. It just was too many triggers to go out fishing and not have him with me, and just being on the lakes and things where we used to fish was sad. It was hurtful.
I can remember feeling like every day that went by, I was getting further and further away from Matt. And Bob says, "Nope, you got that wrong, Chris." And I go, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Every day is a day closer. Every day is a day closer to seeing your son again." But those were, dark times when, you feel like, I can't do this another minute, Lord. It's too hard. Don't ask me to do it. I love to be outside, so being outside was important to me. And I used to take care of the lawn, so riding my tractor was something that I could do. It was something that he didn't do, so it was something I could do and be there with my thoughts, and just do a lot of reflecting. You do have to do a certain amount of grief work. You have to deal with it and not put it on the back burner or self-medicate. But we found out that if you just let the feelings come, deal with them, you were working it through, and I think that's very important, to work those feelings through.
Come home from work after someone's talked about some great outing with their kids, especially with their sons, and come home and know I'm not going to experience that. That hurts. That's very deep, painful stuff. But you just have to go through it. But God dealt with that anger. I did a lot of work with a counselor, and we worked through a ton of stuff, and then it was finally a Good Friday service where they had brought in this huge old rugged cross made out of huge timbers, just similar to like Christ would have been crucified on. And he brought out this huge hammer and big spikes. And he said, "You got pain? You're hurt? You got things you want to get rid of? Bring them up here and nail them." And so afterwards, I took that big spikes, and I drove it, and literally were sparks. And when I walked away, it was gone. I took it to the cross and gave it away, and it left. And I was a different person. That was just the final sealing of it all, was that. It was amazing. So yeah, do I get angry as an adult? Sure, but that's not the same kind of thing. It doesn't drive me or control me anymore. Well, grief is a very lonely journey, and not many people can handle it and do that. But we've had some people come along and join that with us as helpers. And for me, it was a friend named Doug, and he worked in a different part of the company than I did, a few miles away, and we talked every day, and he knew by our phone calls if I was having a day or not, and that would happen. And he would show up at my lunchtime and bring me a bite to eat, just let me sit out in the car with him. Sometimes talk, sometimes cry. Doug encouraged me to do some things and keep going at things I enjoyed doing, and I did, but then he encouraged me into a different kind of fishing, which was very different, with something I've never done before, and I know Matt didn't either. And we did steelhead fishing, so where we used to fish in boats and on the lakes, we now fish in rivers and fish with different equipment and whole different things, and truly come to enjoy being out in God's world again and enjoy this type of thing. So now we're into big fish and different weather and different scenarios and all, and truly enjoy it. And I know, though, that if Matt was here and I could have introduced him to this, he would truly love this. This is just a total blast, and it's something new, but it's where I thought I lost something, and I've got something back.
Everyone grieves in a different way. For me, I was able to significantly focus on my grief by being outside. I realized that grief was a process, just like growing things is a process. I would plant, I would water, and I would watch things grow. And it was like a glimpse of heaven for me. and that God does restore a different way, but giving me a picture of the ultimate glory that He has for us, where colors will be so vibrant, and I will enjoy them someday with my son again. I am just able to enjoy what He's given me here, and He has restored that to me.
We come to realize that God is bigger than any pain we could possibly ever have, and able to handle it, able to handle all our emotions, and even, like it says, Lord, I believe, help me with my unbelief. And He's there to take care of, to teach you, to show you. We believe the Holy Spirit's there to help guide and direct and to show us what God's got for us, and we believe that. When you're dealing with grief as a couple, it's so different in how you do things. But it was real important to me that, as Chris said, she understood better than anybody what it was like. And for me, that was a safe place. We made sure everything was worked on, discussed, supported in any way it was. And it's even beyond best friends. We'd sit for hours sometimes and just talk about things and try and work it out. And my relationship with God has changed in that before I did all the things, and I was a believer, and I did all the things I was supposed to. Was I letting God direct and take care of my life as much as He wanted to? No. But I needed Him. He's faithful. And even though I wasn't, He stayed. And He didn't cast me off. And when I came back, He was willing to take care of me and her and us and show us all the majestic things He could do and the miracles He would show us to prove who He was. And how do you not be grateful for that? That through the toughest of tough, He hung right in there. And it was clearing the way ahead of us to make things a bit better. And I look forward to when I go home someday. Not just because I'm going to see Matt. It's because I want to see the Savior that did this. He's the one that created us and made a place for us to go when we died. And I want to thank Him.
In writing about the loss of his own son, Nicholas Waltersdorf concluded, "Every lament is a love song." When Jesus stood weeping outside the tomb of his dear friend Lazarus, those standing near him commented, "See how he loved him." Love and grief are inseparable. We grieve much when we love much. But what we've seen is that sorrow and grief aren't our only companions on the journey through the shadowlands of loss. Faith, hope, and love go with us when we trust in the Savior, Jesus Christ, God's Son, who died and came back to life to bring us the good news that there is life beyond the grave. And while that hope doesn't eclipse the pain of losing a loved one, it shines more light on the path darkened by grief. The psalmist reminds us that God's words become a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, and that includes the path of grief. The journey through grief is hard, and it's not meant to be traveled alone. Like Bob mentioned, we all need others who come alongside and lend us some of their courage to keep moving when we feel incapable of taking another step. And that's why we're here. We want to come alongside and journey with you through your struggles to let you know you can make it through whatever it might be that you're facing.